Hi, this is Drew Jones of Drewsguitarshop in Seattle, Washington. Today I want to do a video about, well, why action might get higher on your guitar as you go up the neck. This is a common thing that I'll hear from people when they bring a guitar in here for setup, and they'll say something along the lines of, look how much higher the strings are down here at like the 14th fret to how high they are here at the nut. So I'm going to go ahead and explain kind of why this exists, and I'm going to use pictures to kind of help demonstrate. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a fretboard here, and this is going to be an exaggerated picture, as I kind of always do, just to kind of make the concepts a little bit more clear. And we're just going to kind of draw some little frets in here, and keep in mind this is just an illustration for illustration's sake. We're not actually trying to draw something and recreate a guitar. So over here we have our nut, and we have our frets. Now with a nut, the goal with a nut, as far as like action, getting good action on it, is that you really don't want the nut to be any higher than the frets. Like ideally, you would just have kind of another fret here, and the string would go over that and then would rise over to go to the bridge. Now some guitars even have what's called a 0 fret, and you'll see that fret like immediately after the nut, and that's what the strings go over, and that's what sets the nut height on the guitar, is actually literally another fret. And so just keep that in mind, that as far as where the nut height is and where the string height at the nut is going to be, you kind of want that to be like just another fret. You could hold your string down at like the first fret and then look at where it is according to the second fret and see that height there. That's about kind of what you're wanting, is to have it about the same height as the fret. Now, when you get down here though to the bridge, you do need something a little bit different, because if we just set two things over here that were the same height as the fret, well, you would have it going from one fret to the other fret to the other fret to the other fret to the other fret, all the way down to this thing that's the same height as all the frets. And that doesn't make any sense, because if we did that, this string isn't going to play. It's going to be muted on every single one of those contact points, because everything is on a horizontal plane. Everything is on the same level, and the string is touching everything. So that's obviously not going to work for us. So what we need to do is we need to create a portion of a very long triangle. And so we're going to go ahead and pretend this is our saddle. It's an acoustic saddle, electric saddle, imagine whatever makes you feel best. But this saddle is going to be raised up a bit more than the frets. And the string is going to break away at the same height as a fret would from the nut, and it's going to climb over the frets, and it's going to go to the top of that saddle. And if you see this, what you have is kind of this thing going on the bottom. You could imagine this line here being a line you could draw across all the frets. So like if I did this down here, that's what this line would be. And then you would have a string coming off of it, escaping, and kind of going at an angle here, going up to the bridge. And what you have there is a portion of a very long triangle. And so triangles expand at one end and they contract at the other. So you have a point at this end and you have a broad side on this side, right? And so one of those is going to be higher. So, this over here is going to be naturally kind of lower than what you have over here, which is why that action necessarily, it is needed. It is in fact a necessary feature of the guitar that the strings get higher as they climb towards the bridge. There is no getting away from this in terms of like the design of stringed instruments, and in fact this is a thing that does create some problems. So if you've seen kind of those little notches cut into acoustic saddles, or you've seen the way that electric saddles are kind of adjusted with some of them more forward and some of them more back, well, that's because this thing here, this raising of the string, create some tension that is kind of what we would consider to be sort of like where real life hits theory in terms of what we call the rule of 12ths, which is kind of how we determine where points on a scale make notes. And because of this, we have to compensate for the extra tension that gets pulled into the string as it kind of climbs up, because when you bridge this gap by fretting there, it's going to create a little bit more tightness in the string, a little bit more tension, because you're moving it more than it does if you're doing it up here, because there's less distance traveled, there's less pull. When you bend notes, you know how that works, is that you're tightening the string when you're bending up or you're bending down or whatever, but you're applying more tension to that string. So even though you might be fretting on like the 5th fret, the note that you're getting obviously is going to be one down the board. It's kind of the same idea with this, only that you're bending the string downward to fret it. So, there's all kinds of tension and adjustments and stuff that need to happen. So this thing with the frets, or with the strings getting higher off of the fretboard as it goes down the board, is absolutely normal. There is definitely like an appropriate number that we shoot for, like an appropriate height and kind of an inappropriate height. Inappropriate height could be too far up and hard to play, or it could be too far down and we're getting into that situation where we're vibrating on the frets because we've got two things that are wanting to be the same height as frets. So going too low isn't good, going too high isn't good. You want to get to that happy medium, and there are some things that go into that happy medium that include adjusting the neck and making sure that your neck relief is correct, making sure that your radius is dialed in on the guitar, making sure that your compensation and bridge placement and everything is correct. And making sure that your frets are level, because the more level your frets are, the lower you can go usually without getting buzz. So if this is a thing that's bugged you on your guitars, I'd encourage you to kind of take a second look at it and see whether or not kind of the thing that you're uncomfortable with is maybe just a setup issue. Because in a lot of cases, when somebody comes to me with this issue of, hey, the strings are too far off the board, when it gets down towards the body joint, I'm like, well, let's give it a setup and let's dial in the neck, dial in the nut, and we'll get the radius right and we'll get everything right and we'll dial it in. And 9 times out of 10 I'll hand that guitar back to the customer and they're extremely happy with it, because even though it still has technically that same thing going on where it goes on that triangle and it kind of raises up towards the body joint, it's raising up at the appropriate level for playing, and so it doesn't feel as uncomfortable. Just keep in mind that if you do see this like talked about on guitar forums, you see it talked about in guitar videos here on YouTube, or you have a friend, or maybe it's something that you've been concerned about. Hey, why is the string higher down here at the 14th fret than it is up here at like the 1st fret? That this is what's going on. It's a necessary feature of basically every single stringed instrument that you've ever seen. If you've seen an instrument that belongs to the lute family, that is to say any stringed instrument that has a neck on it that you grip and play, you're going to see the same thing. You'll see it on violins, you'll see it on banjos, you'll see it on mandolins, you'll see it on viol da gamba, you'll see it on basically every single instrument that you can possibly think of, because if you had both points at the same level as the fretting surface of the instrument, you're not going to have a playable instrument. And so that's what's going on. I hope that hopefully answered some questions for some people who tuned into this video. If you found it entertaining and you helpful and you wanted to throw me a few bucks, there's a link to my Ko-Fi and my Patreon in the description of the video. Tips there really do help me out. I appreciate them. In that description, you'll also find a link to my Reverb page where I sell some instruments and some other stuff. You might be interested in checking that out. I have a link down there to my website where you can go and you can check out my prices and my contact information, and see a page with all my other videos. You'll see a page with advice that I wrote on caring for stringed instruments, and new on that page is a page that I wrote on basically everything that you could want to know about frets. So if you want that page, you go to my price page, just click on any of the hyperlinks under fretwork, and you'll come up with that page. Anyway, link this around to friends, people you know who are interested in this kind of stuff, and that always helps me out too. I really appreciate you watching this video. I got a lot more videos like this on my channel. Check them out. And yeah, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. Thanks for watching.